The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Hello everyone, welcome into Students of the Game. My name is Alex Baumann. I'm joined by my co-host today, Nathan Glidewell. Unfortunately for the listeners, Gray could not be here, but fortunately for us, Nathan, he's not here to brag about Auburn and the regular season title, so you don't have to hear all the Barner love and everything about Johni Broome, Todd Pettiford, Bruce Pearl, everything in between. But we still have to cover the Tigers and the regular season champs in the SEC. It's happened. Fortunately for us, hate to see it, but Alabama losing to Tennessee in heartbreaking fashion did end up costing the Alabama Crimson Tide. But let's focus on Auburn here for a little bit, Nathan, and talk about the Tigers and their impressive season thus far. You look at their game against Kentucky, pretty much a blowout. We really didn't get to see the second half because ABC, a generator blew up in outside Rupp Arena, so they could not broadcast the second half of that game. But looking at Auburn in the entirety, do you think Auburn crumbles in the tournament like last year? I'm talking about March Madness, not the SEC tournament. Or do they finally get it done in March?
It's hard to say. It's hard to make that call. I mean, the regular season is so different from how it is run versus March Madness. March Madness, you have very little time to prepare. You don't know certain teams you're playing. These are teams you haven't seen all season long. So the competition is really different. I think Auburn is a team built for March. I mean, you see how much talent they have on that team. They're very experienced. They have the National Player of the Year. So there's no doubt they have the capabilities to do it. It's just a matter of being able to capitalize on certain opportunities within that amount of time. We know teams can get hot during the tournament. We know teams can fall apart and get cold. Auburn's been one of those teams that has struggled at certain times, even going back a few years ago when they had a great team with Jabari Smith Jr. and Walker Kessler. They ended up losing a game in, I believe, the second round to Miami. So that team was expected to go far. I expect this team to go further than that team did. But it's hard to really make that call given the fact that we're still in the regular season. I think the biggest thing, you really want to tune into the SEC tournament and kind of watch how they play during that. And I think that's going to be a big sign. But I also wouldn't put all your hopes on that either. I mean, given Alabama last season got bounced in the first round, the SEC tournament against Florida, and they ended up going to the Final Four. So it's really weird. It's hard to determine. But as far as what I've seen this season, I think Auburn's more than capable of being able to reach their goal of a national championship, if not get back to a Final Four.
So kind of focusing in on the Kentucky game, that was a weird game because, like I said, the second half you weren't able to watch it because the generator blew up outside Rupp Arena and prevented ABC from broadcasting the second half. But if you told a lot of Auburn fans, you go into Rupp Arena, hadn't won there since 1988, Johni Broome only scores 9 points, but you come out with a win, they would think you're crazy. They'd punch you in the face, tell you you're absolutely insane going into Rupp Arena and doing that. But, Nathan, to be able to go into Kentucky, beat the Wildcats, and clinch a third regular season title under Coach Bruce Pearl, did it teach you anything more about Auburn winning this game with Johni Broome only scoring 9 points, or did you really not learn anything else from the Tigers?
I mean, it really speaks to the fact that how much talent Johni Broome is surrounded by this season. The fact that he has guys in Miles Kelly that can really step up and take over scoring is a big thing. The experience of Chad Baker-Mazara, he's also become a pretty good shooter this season. He's really been able to attack on the offensive end, which a few years ago, I mean, really, you just ride on his defense. He doesn't provide a lot offensively. That's completely changed. Didn't need a lot of Denver Jones this game, but he's another guy who can really score the ball, and he plays great defense. And then especially off the bench, I mean, Chaney Johnson can have his moments. He can be a good spot at three shooter. And then Todd Pettiford, even though he's a freshman, he's amazing to watch. He's one of the best guards that I've seen play this season. And I expect him to continue to grow and get better, especially as this season goes on. But I don't think I really learned anything new. I think if you really tuned into Auburn and watched them this season, you knew they were capable of having games like this where they didn't have to rely on a guy like Johni Broome. I really go back to the South Carolina game where they lost him due to injury, and they were able to close out that game. I know they didn't really play to their expectations that game, but they ended up winning. And that's been the biggest thing. They find ways to win when they need to. given the variables that come in these different type of games. So you got to take Auburn not for face value, but you really got to look into what they have across the board. Very talented team, very deep, especially at that guard position, which I didn't really expect this season. I didn't know Todd Pettiford was going to be the type of caliber player that he is, but I'm sure Auburn fans found that as a pleasant surprise going into this season, and especially going down the line. You can make a good argument for him to become a real good NBA talent.
This Auburn team has really been surprising all year long because going into it, it was all the talk about Alabama and Tennessee. Those are the main people. And Auburn really wasn't the focus because you look at their portal additions. The big guy everybody was talking about was J.P. Pegues from Furman. And he's not even playing in the rotation. I don't think he's played since early January. So to have your main portal addition not be in the rotation anymore, I know Miles Kelly and a guy in Chaney Johnson were both portal additions, but the team was not expected to be the way they're playing right now. But it comes down to Bruce Pearl, his coaching ability, and the fact you have a lot of seniors on this roster and some veteran experience. Janai Broome, Dylan Cardwell. And I know Chris Moore, he doesn't score a lot of points. He doesn't do a whole lot for this team on the court sometimes, but his leadership is second to none. He's a coach on the floor for Bruce Pearl. But Coach Pearl's ability to come out in his opening sets for games are next level. I mean, if you watch the opening set of the Kentucky game to get Miles Kelly open in the corner for that three-pointer that he made, I mean, I think he surpasses Dan Early game right now. Bruce Pearl this season has been on a tear, but it comes down to the coach's abilities to get his players to play for him. And last season for Bruce Pearl, it was an issue with certain players. Aiden Holloway knows notably to play for their head coach right now. He's got the right players in the system and the right players on the court playing, and that's been the big key for Auburn this season. And I've just been super impressed with the coaching job he's done and the job players have done playing for him. So let's flip over to Alabama, Nathan. Obviously wasn't the same week Auburn had. Didn't get the big win you wanted over Tennessee to kind of clinch up that number one seed or a one seed going into the NCAA tournament for most. You have am I correct with saying they had a 6-point lead, Nathan? Or no, it was a 4-point lead.
4-point lead
with 35 seconds left. And then you blow it and you lose 79-76 on a buzzer beater from Meshack from Tennessee. What happened to Alabama against Tennessee, Nathan? Because most people, you're up 4 points with under 30 seconds left. You have the game in the bag. I mean, they're going to have to foul because the shot clock in NCAA is in 24 seconds. But what happened to Alabama to collapse so massively in such a big game?
I really didn't want to come on here and talk about this. Probably one of the worst losses I've experienced as a Alabama basketball fan. But a absolute terrible, horrible way to lose as far as you can break it down. It's even worse the fact that we haven't beat Tennessee in about 4 years now. And it really looked like we were going to end up taking care of business. I felt like we did everything right in the game up until that point. I really like the way we played defense. We really were able to keep them under wraps. We forced our role players to really step up, and it credit to them they did. Zakai Ziegler wasn't having his best game that he normally had. Chaz Lanier wasn't this all amazing scorer. He was really inefficient, and they just had guys step up. But we were able to respond on the offensive end. I think that's one of the best offensive games we've had against a Rick Barnes coach team in a while. Being able to score that many points. I mean, we really struggle in the past to do so. It felt like we had the game in the bag, and 35 seconds left. I don't know. You can't let your guard down. You have to continue to work on the details. I think the biggest thing for me was when we were up 4, we missed a free throw. LeBaron Pablo missed a free throw. I think that was big. That's the difference between really, it was a 2-possession game, but they make a 3 and they score 1 point. Well, you're losing. Instead, you have a 5-point lead. They had to make a 3, and then they probably made the decision to go ahead and go for 2. That's a big difference, I think, in the way they plan to attack. And I think that's something we had to convert on the free throws in this game. We're not great for us. That's been a struggle. This hasn't been a great free throw shooting team all year, and it really bit us in the butt in this game. But going down to the defensive end, Grant Nelson, didn't really have the best game. I felt like he was a little bit better on the offensive end, but he continues to struggle on defense and makes a terrible play, giving up the and one in the final seconds that really not only kills momentum that Alabama has, but you stop the clock and give Tennessee a chance to make it a 1-point game. And then the pressure is on you to really be able to do stuff. But not even that. They don't convert on the free throw. Terrible call underneath the basket on Jaron Stevenson. I think that's probably the worst call I saw that day. But I'm not here to make excuses based off officiating. I felt like the officiating overall for both teams was poor throughout the game. They couldn't make up their mind if they wanted to call it physical or just kind of let the guys play. But I don't really feel like a game should have been decided on the fact that there was a slight push underneath the basket when trying to get a rebound. That's something that shouldn't decide games. But then again, they were able to tie it up. Alabama has a ball for a final possession. William Fallon drives. They call a jump ball. I also disagree with that. I felt like he got fouled, but
slapped on the arm. Clear as day. Only one.
I digress.
Didn't go 2 hands.
I digress. You can't continue to make excuses. We call a timeout. We set up a pretty good inbounds play. I saw the vision, but we didn't run it fast enough. Jaron Stevenson got held. It was pretty clear in the broadcast. They decided not to call that. And then it was a pretty quick 5-second call. I don't know. It was pretty on the dot of probably 5 seconds, if not a little early, in my opinion. But that's something as a head coach you cannot let happen, especially given the fact we had 2 timeouts. I'm not blaming this all on Coach Oates. You can't blame it on William Fallon. Can't blame it on one specific person. It's a team game. You win as a team, you lose as a team, and we definitely lost as a team. But that's something that cannot happen in the future. You got to be aware of clock management and how to use your timeouts properly. And then, of course, you give Tennessee the ball with 3 seconds left. You really want to put a good defender on the guy bringing the ball at the court who's going to get the final shot. And unfortunately, Grant Nelson makes another poor decision and goes under a screen and gives Meshack a wide open look, and he buries it. Again, it hurts, it sucks, but you make those kind of decisions with 30 seconds left in the game, you deserve to lose. Tennessee, while they didn't play a complete game, they were able to take care of business in the final 30 seconds. You got to give credit to Rick Barnes and what he was able to do defensively, especially put a lot of pressure on us to make good plays, and we didn't convert. We didn't take care of our business. Tennessee, it's a hard place to play. Their fans are rowdy as usual. I even with Rick Barnes and the fact that they don't succeed in the NCAA tournament as much as they would probably like to, you want to be able to beat them in the regular season. It's a big bragging right. I hate Tennessee. I despise Tennessee with every bone in my body. I would argue I hate Tennessee more than I hate Auburn, and the fact that we lost this game left a horrible taste in my mouth. In the way we lost it just adds to the pain that I feel. You can't have games like this. You can't. It's all about finishing and finding ways to finish. And they didn't do it this game. There's been other games where we haven't been able to do it. I think back to the Oregon game in the Players Era tournament or whatever. Weren't able to finish that. Some other notable games in there. But the season's not over. I will continue to say it. You got to refocus on your next game, because the moment you want to go back and sulk on the past and look at the previous game and say, wow, we really should have won that. Well, guess what? It's time for you to wake up and play another great team in Florida at home. And then after that, you have to go to Nell Arena and play the best Auburn team I've seen ever. And then after that, SEC tournament, and then you're still in the NCAA tournament. So I don't think you want to focus on the bad. Obviously, it sucks to lose in the way that you did. You want to watch film. You want to be able to fix what needs to be fixed, but you don't want to just sulk on it. You need to refocus. I go back to the Missouri game, how poor we were in that game. I really thought that was a point of interest, but we were able to refocus for Kentucky and then Mississippi State. And even this one, I felt like we played one of our better games, but it's about that final 30 seconds. You got to take care of business. And Nate Oates knows that, and I think he's going to have this team ready to play against Florida. But I wouldn't lie if I said I worry a little bit about what this team will be feeling come around, I guess, Wednesday, I believe, against a very, very good Florida Gators team who is hungry. They want a 1 seed. I don't think, honestly, at this point, I don't care about seeding. You just got to take your business.
Yeah. It's just difficult to look at this game and not be frustrated. If you're an Alabama player, you played well enough to win it, only turned the ball over 12 times against a Rick Barnes defense. It's one of these games where it's a heartbreaking loss towards the end of the season, and it's a make or break for your team. You're talking about a little bit, Nathan. Do you come together and do you start rattling off wins, or do you fall apart again? Now you lose to Florida, lose to Auburn, and you just fall apart in the SEC tournament, and it's a wrap. That's the big thing is, can Nate Oates and the leaders of this team, Mark Sears, Youngblood, Nelson, Amori, can they get the group around them to rally together and play the way they know they can play up to the potential that they showed earlier and throughout this season, or do they crumble under their own weight? And that's going to be the end-all be-all for the Crimson Tide going into these last 2 games into the SEC tournament is, can they be the Crimson Tide team they know they can be? And this game, they played like it. It's just, like you mentioned, Nathan, the last 30 seconds decide a basketball game, and Alabama played their worst 30 seconds of the game in the last 30 seconds of the game. They just did not execute the way they should have. And it's not LeBaron Philon's fault, like you said. It's not Nate Oates' fault. It's not Gray Nelson's fault for going under the screen. It's everybody's fault. I mean, Nate Oates and LeBaron Philon, one of them should have called a timeout. There should have been communication on the screen in the timeout. Are we going under the screen? Are we going over the screen? Am I going to get a hedge from Cliff Amori? Why do we have 4 big men on the court in a full court scenario where they're having inbound on the opposite end? Why do we have Great Nelson guarding that guy? Why do we have quicker guys on the court? I mean, there's a plethora of issues that could have been seen in that final 30 seconds. It just doesn't come down to one moment. It doesn't come down to the official calling that call or having a no call. There was multiple chances for Bama to win that game, and they just didn't. And that's simple as it can get. Is you had chances to close out the game and win it, and as a group and as a coaching staff, you didn't put your team in the best position to win a basketball game you needed to win to get a 1 seed and really cement yourselves as a dominant team throughout the country in the SEC. So we're kind of talking about a little bit of seeding, Nathan. Let's kind of dive into it here. Joe Lunardi, after the game, has Alabama as a 2 seed and Tennessee as a 1 seed, but then you have JBR keeps Bama on the 1 seed line, being that last 1 seed, and keeps Tennessee on the 2 line and keeps them as the first 2 seed. Who do you agree with more? Do you think Bama should be a 2 seed now, or should they be a 1 seed?
Like I said, it doesn't matter to me. Given the resume, I think Alabama should be rewarded for what they were doing in the non-conference, who they played, and especially some of their big wins. I think they really had the second best resume in the country. But I mean, I also respect head-to-head a lot. I think Tennessee's win, I mean, that's huge. I don't care that it was at home. I don't care how they finished, how the win came. I think as of right now, they're the better team. They found a way to win. Ultimately, I think that we had the higher ceiling, but we didn't play to our full potential. And I feel like that we need to be punished for that. I think that's a big thing. And maybe being put as a 2 seed will provide bigger motivation for a Bama team that desperately needs it going into the final stretch of the regular season. You can't play your worst basketball and so expect to be respected as one of the best teams in the country. That's just the reality of it. And honestly, I don't know. I mean, seeds don't matter to me. As long as we're in the tournament, you had the opportunity to take care of business and run the table and go and win a national championship. You can't focus and put all your cards on, oh, I want to be a 1 seed. I want to get to a certain seed mark. So we have a certain path in the NCAA tournament. Sure, it's nice, but I'd more than rather just go and beat everyone's ass and go and win the national championship. I think that's a bigger thing. You want to take care of business. I think that's a thing I will continue to repeat every single season, every single game. I mean, that isn't just basketball. It's just football. It's every sport. I mean, it shouldn't matter all these little details of being wherever. It shouldn't matter. I mean, just go and win.
Yeah, that is a big thing because as we've seen in years past, I mean, 1 seeds, they've lost in the first round. They've lost in the second round. 2 seeds have even done it. I mean, any seed can lose in any round. It just comes down to, like you were saying, Nathan, who takes care of business that day. And Bama could be a 4 seed, 3 seed. It doesn't matter. All it comes down to is when you go into that arena playing whoever is on the other side of the court, do you take care of business or do you not? Do you play like you played against Missouri defensively, or do you play like you did against Kentucky in the second half defensively? That's the big difference, is what Alabama team or what Auburn team or whoever you're a fan of, what team comes out on that court that day in March Madness is going to be the telltale sign. You could be a 16 seed. We saw it. UMBC. They were not intimidated by Virginia. They came out there and they said, you know what? We're not a 16 seed. We're just UMBC. We just won our conference. We're a conference champion. Virginia's a conference champion. We're going to go out there and take care of business. It doesn't matter the number beside your name. It matters the heart you have in your chest and how much pride you play with for that team and for your fan base and for your coaching staff. That's the big thing when it comes to March Madness.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So talking about the 1 seed, Nathan, 1 seeds, who would you give the 1 seeds to right now sitting here today?
Auburn's a guarantee 1 seed. Duke will be another guarantee 1 seed. And I would say Houston right now, it will definitely get that 3rd spot, given how well they've been playing recently. I feel like the recent win over Iowa State last week was a big thing for them, and they continue to take care of business. And then we'll have to see how the rest of the regular season finishes up. Had a lot of implications still with that Alabama-Florida game. I feel like Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida are really, really, really close. They're all jockeying for that last 1 seed. And I think it's really just going to come down to, can Tennessee finish the regular season strong? Right now, they would be my last 1 seed. But hey, if Alabama goes and beats Florida, and then let's say they knock off Auburn and Neville, then that's another really, really strong case to say, hey, I mean, these are 2 of the best wins in the country this regular season. We have a good argument to be that last 1 seed. Like I said, don't care at the end of the day. I really don't care. But that's just how it's shaping up to be right now. But I think really every team has a legitimate argument. I mean, really, you should probably have 6 1 seeds this year, given how well everyone's been playing. And that's a crazy thought for me.
Don't give anybody any ideas about expecting the tournament to have 6 1 seeds.
Oh,
they're already talking about it.
Absolutely.
Don't give them any ideas. I don't want to see 100+ team NCAA tournament. That's just way too much. Way too much. I think it devalues the getting to the NCAA tournament, much like an expanded college football playoff kind of has nowadays. But we all always focus on Auburn and Alabama and the SEC and the top teams around the country. But kind of looking at the bracketology and watching these teams throughout the regular season, Nathan, is there anyone you don't think's getting enough attention that could really give a good run in the NCAA tournament?
I mean, I would say, I said Missouri last week. I totally agree with that fully. But another team in Michigan, I feel like the line that they have with running 2 7-footers, really, very good 7-footers who are able to score, will give a lot of teams problems. I go back to last year and the way Alabama was designed as a team. We were not big at all. We struggled against bigger guys. Amar Nobody Hot gave us a lot of trouble. So I feel like it can be a similar situation. You don't have guys big enough. I mean, some of these teams in the tournament, their average height is like it's not good at all compared to 2 7-footers. So it's a difficult matchup for people. It's a mismatch. I think Michigan definitely can get further in the tournament than a lot of these other teams. And then a team like Texas Tech, who I feel like has not been respected all season long, has really proven that they are a dominant force and they can make a deep run as well.
Yeah, I was going to say Texas Tech, too. The way JT Toppin is playing right now, they're a big man. I think in the last handful of games, he's averaging over 20 points. When it comes to March, a lot of times big men have a huge impact on the games. We saw Zach Edey have that, but that's for another reason. He's just a foul baiter and gets every whistle in the game. Mm-hmm. But big men have been known to dominate when it comes to March, just like a veteran guard does as well. And Texas Tech has that, and a guy in Chance McMillan. He's been around a while in college basketball. So you have 2 big things you want going into March. Elijah Hawkins, a guard for Texas Tech as well. So the Red Raiders have a lot of pieces you want to see going into March Madness if you want to make a deep run. Wisconsin, John Tonji there. He's been lights out, probably going to end up being the Big Ten Player of the Year if it doesn't go to Braden Smith. So you have a big guard at Wisconsin. We saw what Oregon did earlier in the season. They've kind of tapered off towards the end of it. But, I mean, anything can happen in March. They've done it before. They did it last year, made a pretty fantastic run, just fell short. So, but Texas Tech, to me, they just have all the pieces you want to see going into March Madness. A big man that's a star of your team, 2 really good guards that can get you going, and a very good head coach in Grant McLaughlin. I kind of butchered that last name, but he was the former coach at North Texas, who I absolutely hated as a UAB student. They were always our arch rival, but he always had that team playing up to what they should be in the American Conference. But it's crazy that how great this regular season has been, not only in the SEC but around the country. I know the ACC's kind of down conference wise, but Nathan, how great has this regular season been for college basketball? Not only in the SEC but just around the country as a whole.
I think it's been one of the more exciting regular seasons, given the matchups we've seen. I go back to the non-conference. I think we saw some pretty great matches early on in the season, even against teams who haven't been playing their best basketball lately or are not projected to currently make the NCAA tournament. I think that the design of how the non-conference has been run has been really well. The tournaments that we've been able to see, I was really excited to watch the Players Era tournament. I think that was one of the more fun watches, and I liked how competitive it was and the incentives behind it. And then, of course, you go into conference play, and you've had the SEC being so dominant, but you also have a great Big Ten, who I don't think a lot of people have given enough notice to in the way that they've been able to compete. And then the Big 12 has been good as usual. It really expected Kansas to do well, but here comes all these other teams out of nowhere that are 10 times better than they are. You have Rick Pitino coaching a great St. John's team, and the Big East isn't just UConn anymore. It is a very diverse conference. And then, of course, the ACC, while it might seem like it's down, you really have a great team in Duke, and Cooper Flagg as a freshman, who's very exciting to watch. He's one of the best players in the country as a freshman, which is crazy to think he wasn't just all hype like people sometimes are. But it's definitely been different. It's different from previous years. You don't have the Pac-12, the way the new conferences have worked. I think we haven't really spoke about that enough in basketball terms, and we've always brought it up with football, but the way it's been with basketball, it's been really exciting to watch. And I think continuing into next season, I mean, we're going to continue to see very, very exciting games, especially with how these tournaments are growing. I mean, I didn't even touch on the Maui Invitational. I mean, that was such a fun watch as well. You talk about the number of top teams in there. That was a super fun tournament to watch, and some other ones that were also fun to watch. But I really haven't taken this season for granted. I think it's been extremely special to watch. I don't think we'll see this great of a regular season next year or anytime soon, just given the sheer amount of talent that has been spread out across the college basketball landscape, but really especially the SEC, being able to watch a quad one game every night where ranked teams are just battling it out, and it's just punch after punch after punch thrown. It's been really special to watch, and it really takes you back to watching like a really, really good ACC in how competitive they were in that conference back in the day. And then, of course, previous years with the Big 12, but I felt like this is a completely different animal because no one really expects the SEC to be this good at basketball. And really, the fans are the ones that really make it because of how intense they are with football. They get extra intense with basketball, too, because you're so in tight spaces and you can scream at each other. It's fun to watch.
I can't wait to see how good March Madness is if this is how good the regular season is, because we, like you said, Nathan, we have not seen a regular season like this in a long, long time, probably since the early 2000s, maybe early 2010s. But this regular season has been crazy finishes, surprising teams, disappointing teams. So I can only imagine the sheer insanity that's going to come with March Madness and the NCAA tournament coming up here very soon. Before we get out of here, Nathan, Gray is not here, so I'm going to give you a chance to talk about this. Who gets the National Player of the Year, Cooper Flagg or Janai Broome?
I already said earlier, Janai Broome is going to get it.
Even after Kentucky?
Yeah, I mean, he had so much space for me to make mistakes and to win. And honestly, I mean, you look at what John Abrams been able to do for Auburn this season. He's been the real catalyst behind what they've been able to do. And I can say the same for Cooper Flag, but unfortunately, Duke and Cooper Flag hasn't played the same tier of competition that Auburn has, and what Auburn's been able to do behind Janiah Broom and really relying on him to carry him through the gauntlet that has been the SEC this season. That really did it for me. He is an impressive player to watch. His footwork is incredible. His touch around the rim is just absolutely incredible. And the way he's been able to expand his outside shot this season, it's a hard thing to do as a big man. Not all big men are able to do it, but he's been able to knock him down at a pretty clean clip. Not to mention his ball handling skills have gotten better as well. I think if Cooper Flag was a more established player and not just a freshman, I'd say this is a different scenario. But given the fact that John Broom has made such a big jump, we've been able to compare him to previous years. I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to voting for National Player of the Year. And that's probably going to be the end all be all, not to mention Auburn having the number 1 seed. I mean, that's the number 1 overall seed carries a lot of weight with it, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, Auburn legitimately could not play their final 2 games of the regular season, not play an SEC tournament, and still be a 1 seed. There would be no argument from anybody. Their ability to win quad 1 games and the dominance they play with all year. I mean, it all comes back to Janiah Broom and what he's done on the court for them, even on what a good ankle for almost the entirety of 2025. That's kind of crazy, having to play as a big man. Nathan, ankle injuries in basketball are no joke. Having to get that lift as a big man, trying to do hook shots, jumpers. I mean, anything's difficult with one good ankle. So Janiah Broom, credit to him and how outstanding he's played in a gauntlet of an SEC. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening and watching, students of the game.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.